Good evening. This is Satan's Trilogy, and it is Book 3, Chapter 5, Reading 98. I am the author and the narrator. Sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Wearing his traditional black tuxedo, Michael Wade spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome." The crowd was very, very loud, and Michael Wade paused as he waited for the crowd to settle down. We have 6 championship matches tonight, culminating with the Heavyweight Championship of the World Organization of Wrestlers. The crowd again yelled and whistled so loud that Michael Wade had to pause and wait a few seconds to continue. Black Gothic Band was playing chords to accompany everything Michael Wade said. The band was truly in sync with the dialogue of the night, and their instruments were enhancing the experience. Standing at the top of some stairs, a wrestler waited to be introduced. Esther had seen his shadow moving in the blackened hallway. Michael Wade raised his hand and declared, "Our first match of the night is between the Rhino." Michael Wade lowered his arm towards the upper entrance where the Rhino stood waiting for his introduction. At 6'3" and showing little fat on his body, the Rhino weighed in at 320 pounds. Wearing gray trunks and high boots that were Rhino gray, the Rhino made his way down to the wrestling ring as he touched dozens of his fans along the way. The Rhino was all business, and as he entered the ring, he went to his corner and held up his arms, quickly lowering them to show off his massive biceps. The Rhino was popular, and his fans responded in kind, applauding loudly to his every action. In the Rhino's corner awaited his manager and 2 of his security crew, welcoming him to the ring. The Rhino was from South Africa. He had dark black skin and shoulder-length, greasy black hair. The Rhino was an experienced wrestler that wanted to experience the W.O.W. as a champion. Michael Wade continued as the noise died down, and the challenger for the Midwest title is Booker Black. Michael Wade held his right arm up and towards the opposite side of the stadium, indicating where Booker Black stood. Booker Black wore a long black robe that reflected bits of light. As Booker Black walked down the stairs, he was closely followed by 2 large black men that served as his bodyguards. They stayed close and watched for nuisance fans that might become carried away. Dressed in black suits, they could fend off any overly zealous fan without hurting him or her. Their talents in handling fans were second to none. This was the skill every wrestler's crew had to be efficient in. Booker Black shed his robe as he neared the wrestling ring, and the robe's hood had concealed his shoulder-length black hair and handsome head. Well tanned, Booker had a strong, square chin. Having arrived from Australia several years ago, he now had a huge following in the W.O.W. He quickly jumped over the ropes and onto the mat, holding his arms up high and flexing his muscles. At the same time, his fans were raising the noise level in appreciation. But of course, There were plenty of fans booing at the same time. Booker Black was the challenger of a popular champion, and the fans that loved Rhino were supporting him by booing Booker Black. Instead of going to his corner, Booker Black went to Michael Wade and took the microphone from him. He then quickly spoke to the audience, staring at the fans as he turned a full 360 degrees. He addressed the crowd. "Trust me, tonight I will take my rightful place in the World Organization of Wrestlers." He paused a second after one of his fans yelled, "Yes!" Then quickly continuing his address, yelling, "I will not be ignored, denied, or dismissed from this point on, for I am the future of the W.O.W. He held up both hands into the air, and as his fans yelled in approval. Having slowly made his way behind Booker Black, Rhino's manager started to swing a briefcase towards Booker's head. He was grabbed from behind by Booker's two security guards. They tossed the somewhat frail-looking manager back towards the corner that Rhino stood in. The Rhino appeared upset but didn't move. He yelled at Booker's security men. He then helped his manager to his feet. Michael Wade took the microphone back from Booker Black and continued his announcing the match. The bell was rung twice for everyone to leave the mat except for the wrestlers, who would come to the center of the ring. Black and Rhino stood within inches of each other, having similar builds and weight. They stared each other in the face. Michael Wade introduced the referee, who rambled off the usual rules and then announced a win would be by pin only, and there would be a 30-minute time limit. The wrestlers were told to return to their corners. Michael Wade had left the mat, and the referee signaled to the official table to start the match. The bell was rung. Both wrestlers ran to the other and started to pound on the other's chest. Booker Black finally grabbed the left arm on Rhino and rode him over his back and onto the mat, quickly putting his foot to Rhino's armpit as he applied pressure to Rhino's arm. The move appeared to hurt, really hurt. The referee was looking for any sign from Rhino that the pain was too much, but he got none. Finally, Rhino worked his way to the edge of the mat, and the referee made Booker Black release his hold. Black quickly climbed the corner ropes and launched himself into the Rhino. Still weak from the attack, Rhino was staggering to get up when Black crushed onto him with a forearm slam. Rhino went again to the mat, and Black grabbed his arm and pulled Rhino to the center of the ring. Rhino laid there nearly lifeless while Black went back to a corner and climbed the ropes. Without any pause, Black again launched himself into Rhino with a crushing elbow slam. Rhino rolled over in pain. The crowd didn't like what they were seeing. Black was dominating the match. The fans of Rhino were booing Black and yelling for Rhino to recover. But something was wrong, and Rhino seemed to have lost his strength. Grabbing Rhino again, Black pulled him to the center of the ring. Then he again slammed his elbow onto Rhino. This time it was onto Rhino's chest. Booker Black smiled as he laid across Rhino's chest, and the referee counted Rhino out. This match lasted 12 minutes and 6 seconds. It was short by most standards, but in the W.O.W, little was certain when it came to championship matches. Michael Wade made his way back to the center of the ring. The Rhino's body was pulled off and carried away in a stretcher with little fanfare. Holding his signature golden microphone, Michael Wade raised it to his lips and announced the results of the match. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new champion of the Midwest. Michael paused, then yelled out, Booker Black. Michael had yelled the name Booker Black with a large amount of enthusiasm, and the crowd seemed to follow his enthusiasm and went into a frenzy. Black was now the champion. It was not the sought-after heavyweight championship belt of the world, but it would do for now. Michael Wade moved to Booker Black and asked, How do you feel that you are now the champion of the Midwest? Black took the gold microphone and spoke. I have taken a small step towards achieving my ultimate goal of world dominance. Black ignored the background of some booing by the audience. The longest journey begins with the first step. This was the beginning of my world conquest in the wrestling world. Black handed the golden microphone back to Michael Wade and waved to his fans, then left the ring. His message had been short and to the point. Booker Black had big aspirations. Esther, Mary, Day, Riley Grace, and all of Esther's friends were having a wild, wonderful time. As the next wrestling match was prepared, Black Gothic band played some repetitive background music that held onto the excitement of the night. There was more to come, and the audience knew it. The music held onto the promise of more excitement. A young usher approached Esther and handed her a note. Reading the note, Esther turned to her friends sitting alongside her. Esther said, The twins want to see me. Looking at Day, Raven, and Riley Grace, she asked, Would you mind coming with me? The girls were quick to agree to follow Esther. Esther glanced at Mary. I need you at my side, do you mind? Mary M. had seen Esther in action and was certainly not going to refuse an opportunity to know what was happening, and quickly said, Lead the way. I'll have your back. The 5 girls stood, and with few people taking notice, they followed the usher. John, sitting in the row behind Esther, did not notice the girls leaving. He was slightly concerned, though he knew that Esther could handle herself. The usher led the girls to the stairs that went to the lower level of the stadium. Standing at the entrance, he indicated they should go down the stairs. Esther quickly moved past the 2 large security guards that kept unwanted fans from the lower level. The 4 girls were on her heels. At the bottom of the stairs, Tracy Ann and Danielle Elizabeth were waiting. They seemed anxious and relieved to see Esther. The twins were obviously nervous and seemed slightly relieved. After giving Day, Riley, Grace, Raven, and Esther a hug, Danielle spoke to Mary. My name is Danielle Elizabeth. This is my sister Tracy Ann. Thank you for coming. Tracy smiled at Mary and gave her a hug. Danielle quickly said to Esther, We have a problem. Esther spoke in a slow, confident manner. Danielle, take a deep breath and tell me what is happening. Last night, we had a show in St. Louis, and Satan really hurt his challenger. He dominated him from the start, and after toying with him for 20 minutes, Satan tossed him into the air, letting him fall into Satan's bent leg. The challenger's back was broken. Danielle looked really concerned, then said, Esther, Bo watched the entire match. He watched the challenger taken away on a stretcher. Esther, said Danielle, Bo has lost his confidence. Satan terrifies him. Esther appeared calm and asked, Where is Bo now? Tracy spoke up. He's locked himself into his dressing room. Tracy added, And he isn't opening the door for anyone. Esther grinned at Tracy, Then, turning to Danielle, she said, "Lead the way." Tracy and Danielle quickly turned and walked down the long hallway with the girls following. Having reached the near end of the hall, the twins stopped at a door on their right. "This is Beau's room." Esther turned to Riley Grace. "What do you think, Riley? Can you open this door?" Riley stepped in front of the door, pulled a simple hairpin from her hair, and placed it into the doorknob. Immediately, Riley stepped back and said, "It is unlocked." Esther smiled at her friends. "Let's see if we can find the real issue here." Esther opened the door and found Beau Jackson sitting in a corner, straight ahead and to the right. Esther stood back and asked the twins to go first. "You should tell Beau that your friends are here, that we may be able to help." Tracy stepped into the room, followed by Danielle. They both went to Beau, while the 5 girls followed but stood back. Tracy kneeled down in front of Beau and spoke to him. "Beau, we brought our friend Esther. Danielle and I told you about her. She is from China." Leaning closer to Beau, Tracy said, "She is very wise. I want you to listen to her." Esther came forward. Danielle and Tracy took a couple of steps back. "Beau, will you please stand up for me?" Looking about the room, Beau studied the young girls, saw Danielle and Tracy waiting for him to do something. Beau pulled himself up out of a very low recliner and eventually straightened himself out in front of Esther. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 340 pounds of muscle, Beau was an impressive man. His sky blue eyes were prominent on his tanned face, with his long black hair reaching his shoulders. Esther studied him and took a step closer. "The twins tell me you have concerns about Satan." Esther stopped talking and listened for a moment, her ear turned towards the open door. Turning back to Beau, Esther continued, "You are wise to fear the man. He is a mountain of strength, and he has defeated everyone that has challenged him." Esther had Beau's attention. This wasn't the pep talk that he expected. "Beau, I sleep only a few hours a night, and so early each morning I research hundreds of subjects on the internet." Esther smiled at Beau. "You were a national wrestling champion and an Olympic hopeful." Esther stepped back from Beau, turning towards the twins and her friends, glancing at the door, then turned quickly to Beau and forcefully spoke to him. "You're a mountain of muscle, and the difference between you and all of the other wrestlers is that you are indeed a trained wrestler. You know wrestling moves and holds that you can put on your opponents." Having paused, Esther quickly continued, "You know that a wrestler can defeat a stronger opponent through the use of wrestling techniques. Satan is strong, but that is all he has going for him. That is, unless you are scared of him. Satan can take that fear and use it to defeat you." At that moment, a large figure stood at the room's entrance and walked in. It was Satan, and his appearance seemed to tower over everything in the room. Wearing tall red wrestling boots, tight red wrestling pants, and shirt, his clothing seemed to be a second skin. Satan wore a silk mask that hid his identity. Even his mouth was covered by the mask, and when he spoke it was a muffled, deep, and graspy voice. Satan stood tall, stepping 3 feet into the room. He gazed about. "You are afraid. I can smell it, and you have these children telling you how great you are." Satan laughed, and then took another step forward. Tonight, I will dominate you. Esther took a step towards Satan and said, "You are not welcome here. Leave now." Satan laughed at Esther. "You should stand back. I intend on leaving an impression on this man." Satan started to push Esther aside when Esther quickly reacted, deflecting his arm and hitting Satan in his sternum, sending him flying back into the hallway, stunned. Satan hit the far wall and was stunned. Gathering his composure, he glanced back into the room at Esther. "Who are you?" Satan moved quickly away from the room's entrance and disappeared from everyone's view. Esther turned to Bo. "Satan is just a man. He is a very strong man, and yet just a man." Bo was stunned by what he had just witnessed. His confidence was now peaked. If this young girl could send Satan flying 12 feet, then Satan was indeed just a man. Bo was ready for the night's challenge. "I never should have doubted myself," said Bo. "Well then," said Esther, "we will go back to our seats and wait for the show to begin." Tracy and Danielle quickly grabbed Esther and hugged her. "We love you, Esther," said Tracy. Danielle quickly said the same. "Thank you so much for coming downstairs." Esther pulled the twins closer. "Day and I are very proud of our twin sisters. If we can ever help either of you, we'll be there." Raven, Riley Grace, and Mary had been watching in awe. Esther had dispatched Satan without the slightest difficulty. Had they not seen it, it would have been hard to believe. They, on the other hand, was not even slightly impressed. Reacting to Esther's comments, they quickly said, "All right, let's go watch the remainder of the night's competition. I think the rest of the night might be anticlimactic," said Raven. "I am on the same page as you," said Mary, as all the girls headed out of the room and back to their seats. "You will do fine," said Esther to the twins, as they hugged her and Esther left the room, following her friends. Mary stood in the hallway at the door's entrance. They and Esther walked into the hallway, and they both grabbed Mary by her arms and pulled her between them. "Day," said to Mary, "it is good to know that if I was not here, you would be with Esther." Esther glanced across Mary and said to Day, "You will always be here. I know these things." Esther smiled. "I love Mary. It is just a fact that I can't explain," said Esther. "I know that she will have my back when we are together." Esther smiled at Mary. "Our bond's strength isn't by time spent together. It is by our thoughts." Mary looked at Esther and totally understood what she was saying. With Day holding tight on her right arm and Esther holding tight on her left arm, Mary had never felt so secure and loved. Mary looked at the two girls and said, "Someone will see us and think that I'm your mother." Mary quickly added, "I should be so lucky." Day quickly said, "You look too young to be our mother. No one will think that." The girls were quiet for a moment, and then they all laughed. They all knew that Mary could easily be their mother if only she looked a bit like the girls. They all thought this comical. And that is the end of reading 98. I hope you enjoyed it. So until the next time, be safe and take care. Thank you for listening.